As a preliminary matter, this is Hillary Hedges' report, the chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission. Please permit me to confirm that all members in person anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So I'm going to call everybody's name. Holly, you can hear me. I know because you've been talking. David Silver.
Present.
Betsy Tyler. Hello, Betsy. Mickey Rowland. We can't hear you, Mickey, but it looks like you can hear us. Okay. Hopefully, yeah, I see the hand going up. Great. Angus McLeod.
I'm here.
Great. Hi, Angus. And we also have a guest, Ken Bogrand. Hi, Ken.
Good morning.
Can you hear us okay?
Yep, I can. Thank you.
Good morning. And great. And we are expecting 2 additional people, Georgia Raisman and Dawn Hill Holgate. So if we don't have them soon, we might find out where they are. So good morning. This open meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency of the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. As such, the governor's order suspends the suspends my meeting script. Suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. The meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Historical Commission is convening by Zoom, as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Note that the meeting is being recorded. All attendees are participating by video conference or dialing in by phone. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Take care not to screen share your computer. Anything broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials have been provided. Members of this body are available on the town's website. There were a couple materials that were presented later, but I'm sure you'll be able to see them on the screen. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I know to cover some groundwork for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items of public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Each vote is going to be taken by roll call vote. Get back to the meeting. Great. Okay, I'm just looking at the gallery. Has anybody, all right, we have Mary Longacre has joined as a guest. Hi, Mary, thanks for joining us. Brian Pfeiffer is here, who's one of our resource advisors, and Dawn Holgate is present as well. And I'm still expecting Georgia at some point. So let's go ahead and turn, I'd like to establish that there is a quorum. I don't have public comment on the agenda, so I guess we won't have public comment, but we will take public comment on the meeting topics that are on the agenda. So we have some minutes from August 21st. I know that there are a lot of typos in the minutes, so I'd like to just clarify that we will go ahead and correct the typos before we post the minutes, but does anybody have any requested substantive changes or would like to make a motion about the minutes of August 21st?
With the exception of the typos, can I make a motion to approve?
Great. So second. I'll go ahead and second that. All in favor to accept the minutes? David?
Aye.
Aye. Mickey?
Aye.
And I'm in favor of my motion. And Angus, are you in favor of your motion? Yes. Okay, so that is accepted. Okay, so the first item on our agenda is a review of the Nantucket Historical Commission's contribution to the discussion of the Coon Street name change. There's a memo in the packet, and the intention is that this would be adopted as our statement. This is something that Betsy and I worked on together and reviewed with David Silver before writing it up and sending it to you. We also talked with Fran, but Fran, who is one of our Nhc Resource Advisors, felt that she had done her work and she didn't want to, restate it. She had already stated it, which we of course respect. And anyway, this was a lot of fun to work on. I didn't expect to find the information that I found at all. I think Betsy also found some incredibly interesting information that's helpful. And I just wondered if there were any questions or if you wanted to hear more about the process or what we found from us. Any comments? Don't all speak at once.
I'm so impressed by the research that you and Betsy did. It really turned out to be a rabbit hole that was quite deep and very interesting. It's interesting how just the name of a street can sort of lead you into this sort of history, but just fascinating. And thank you both for doing that.
Thank you, Angus. Did anyone else want to make any comment about the report or make a motion to accept it and send it on to the select board for their consideration? Oh, I see we have Georgia here.
Hello, Madam Chair.
Hi, Georgia. Yes, Holly.
I want to thank Betsy for putting this work in. I know how extensive the work that she does. I've had the privilege of doing work with her a long time ago. I'm just a little concerned as far as we have two advisors, very well-known researchers for Nantucket, who are not on the same page, I guess is a good way to say it, on the history of the street. And I'm just wondering if there just needs to be a caveat on that, because both these ladies are very well respected. I respect them very highly, but I do see there's a little bit of, difference of opinion, I guess, in the research. So I just wanted to make that note.
Do you want to summarize? I mean, Fran isn't here now. So Holly, just for the benefit of everyone, do you want to summarize specifically what the difference of opinion is? And by the way, we did share this with Fran, and Fran was invited to be part of our group, and she felt that she had already done her work and she had her story, and that there was really no point in her continuing to participate in this work.
I believe in the research that Fran provided to the select board, she was linking it to the Coon family, as well as not in agreement of the independent court name of the previous name. So I do know that sometimes, doing research, you can find something that, over time, one way or another, say a very contemporary historian did something and found it was this, but then you find out that it was, redacted by another historian. I just wanted to make the point that we have seen two different type of documentation. I just wanted to make that point because I feel that if I don't address it now, somebody in the public will when it goes before the select board. That was just my point.
Dawn,
Holly?
did you want to say something?
Yeah, Holly, could you remind me what Fran thought the original street name was? I just don't have that. Because I really liked the idea of going back to the original name and calling it Independent, but.
Right, I believe that was, and I apologize, I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe if in the packet that was provided to the select board previously, that it was not referencing towards independent court, and that in this documentation it was the Coon family was not associated with the street, whereas it was previously found. So I'm just noting that there's a difference of opinion.
Okay, you just nobody remembers.
Sorry,
what.
if I could just direct the conversation to Betsy because she's had a follow-up conversation. Betsy, please.
Sure, and I have spoken to Fran as well. Fran was not able to do deed research because the Registry of Deeds has been closed. I was able to get in there and I spent a good 5 or 6 hours looking at the deeds to each house on the street. And that's when I discovered that 3 of the deeds actually did use the term independent court. Fran had been told by one of the homeowners that the street was in a deed referred to as Independence Lane. And that's not true. It was not referred to as Independence Lane. There was an Independence Lane, but it wasn't in this location. So Fran just didn't have the documentation that actually shows the name. And she was, she assumed, as I think a lot of us did, that it probably was named for the Coon family, and that's what I expected to find when I wanted to know which house the Coon family lived in, and it turns out they did not own property on the street. I looked at each piece of property. So that was a surprising find.
And I thank you, Betsy, on that, because I know you do extensive deed research. I mean, that's the part of doing preservation work in general. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad you were able to do it. And I do note that with COVID, doing any type of previous deed research was difficult. So thank you. I appreciate you notating.
My pleasure.
Brian, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. I just want to make a brief comment. I think for me, this is a very good opportunity just to the Historical Commission to remind people a lot of this local history is not absolutely definitive. You often cannot nail it down completely. At the time this name is occurring, many towns had streets they didn't bother to name. They'd often name it descriptively down by the such and such. Names became in, they became fluid, and you can easily see how at some point it's independent court, and maybe there's a kind of teasing of people there for being Whigs, so it becomes Coon, whatever it is in the common jargon. And whoever refers to it then in a deed wants to make sure there's no ambiguity, so they give both names. So I think it's good to say there's really interesting research, and all of it's fascinating. As to a definitive, final, absolute answer, you're probably not going to find it. The research is terrific.
And thank you, Brian. I'll just add, we're not disagreeing with Fran. This street very well could be named for the Coon family. It's just that we could not uncover a connection between the Coon family and the street. Now, we did note that an in-law, so as Betsy described in her paper, an in-law of Captain Charles Coon, a relation of his wife, did live on the street, but she sold that property before the name change. The name change would have happened sometime after 1838 and before 1844. Or right in 1844. We just know that it was known as Coon Street by 1844, and it was not known as Coon Street in 1838. So they could have been a boarder, they could have been a friend. I mean, any of this is possible. We're just saying that there's no driving reason to say conclusively one way or another. And I think it's just very interesting as far as Nantucket history to know what people would have been aware of, how language was used especially the coincidence of the date. And it just was so interesting for me to discover how history rhymes, that we're in this very contentious political environment now, and to spend some time looking back through the papers and see how that was the case then. And it was, I think, a case for community pride as well, to see that, in fact, Nantucket had been solidly with the Coon party, or the Whigs, who had been the anti-slavery party. And I think in the context of this discussion and how it came up, that's certainly something interesting to note.
I just
So
wanted to
if
make
there-
a
if-
note. Sorry, I just wanted to make a note on the deed research annotating John B. Nicholson. He was a house right on Nantucket and built houses in that area. I know of 3 off of Cottage Court, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, could I have a motion to accept this memo and forward it on to the select board for their consideration?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mickey. A second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, David. All in favor? I am Angus in favor.
Aye.
Georgia?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. Okay, thank you very much. So now we're going to go on to the discussion of the mission statement. So we've been meeting a lot lately, and we called this meeting a week after our last meeting because we could get Dawn with us and discuss this matter of, it's really more than the mission statement. I think some kind of coming together of an understanding of how what the role of the commission is, and the structure of the commission, what authority is granted to the commission. So I did release by email last night a memo that was given to me by Libby just the other day. So I got this memo in the last 48 hours, which is why it's not in our packet. And then we do have in our packet different mission statements that have been pulled together. And we had a brief discussion at our last meeting last week, where, if I'm summarizing it correctly, I believe we decided that it would probably be better just to have a very simple statement on our website that was closer to the statement that was there originally. And that would be clarifying for some of the concerns from the planning director. So I want to talk about the mission statement. I want to talk about the letter from Ken, and Ken is here. And I also want to talk about the certified local government. I'd like to put a little structure because there's a lot to talk about, and maybe introduce some decisions that we could make as a group in an order that I think kind of flows well. So one of the things that I thought might be helpful to get out of the way, and hopefully not really something with much difficulty to discuss, is the NHC Resource Advisors. Holly, could you put up what I emailed last night? So NHC Resource Advisors is not specifically on our agenda, but because it's addressed in the letter, I thought maybe we could answer some of the questions and have some clarification. We voted in a prior meeting to change the name. We called this the NHC Resource Board, and the select board said, you know, it's a little confusing because we don't want to have a board within a board. And when people hear board, they assume some kind of authority. So we voted to change the name to the NHC Resource Advisors. And Holly asked if we could just, you know, have something to clarify the role of this group of people. So in the interest of doing that, I've put together this communication and would like to I'd like to ask everybody to comment, and I'd especially like to hear from folks that might still have some concern about this group. What do you all think about this? So it says, I'll just read it into the record. It says the NHC Resource Advisors are an ad hoc group of skilled volunteers with specific technical expertise in relevant areas, including preservation building, architectural history, Nantucket history, archaeology, and other relevant disciplines. These experts may be called upon to volunteer specific information or advice to the Historical Commission or at the request of the Historical Commission, other town boards, commissions, and staff when requested by the Historical Commission, which the commission in the town is for preservation of historic resources on Nantucket. So is there any comment about this or any concern or confusion about this group of people that we should, you know, have this ad hoc group? Dawn.
I'm sorry to say this, but this still feels extremely formalized and like you're making an appointment of a group, and not that they are not all very well qualified, but I think that what we were getting at was just having more of a list of resources that you could go to within the community and not having essentially a formalized subcommittee. Which this doesn't seem to have really changed from that, because you don't really have any appointing authority. And if you want that, then we need to go through a process. I don't know if Holly has any thoughts on that, but it's still making me a little bit uncomfortable in its layout.
Dawn, I respect that wholeheartedly. I'm curious on if that's been done before with a committee that's been appointed by the select board, and then in turn have advisory ad hoc kind of members. If that's been done before.
I don't know exactly how the process was started, but the HDC does have their advisory boards, the Sconset Advisory Board and the Historic District Advisory. No, it's not that. Well,
yes,
you know,
all the advisory boards through the HDC, correct.
So I'm not sure exactly how those were established and what the process was. I mean, the HDC is a regulatory board, so they're a little bit different. But I was very comfortable with a list of potential resources, but this just still seems extremely formalized, like it's an actual subcommittee.
Do any of the commissioners have any comment? I mean, it might be useful to look.
Hillary, you're breaking up.
Because there is, you know,
Hillary,
it says we shall seek to coordinate the activities. Can you guys hear me now?
We just heard that last sentence, Hillary. You were before that. We didn't hear what you were saying.
Okay, and Angus, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you were saying.
I was saying that I couldn't hear you, that I thought it was a computer.
Oh.
But I do have a comment about that. I mean, I guess this all comes down to semantics, really. But if there's concern about there being a sub board or a formal board, I understand that. These are advisors for us who we would appreciate to be able to call on, and listing who they are and what their credentials are. I don't understand an issue with it. So,
Angus, I think I just pulled up from my own consultation the statute. So I certainly understand, Dawn, your concern, and I think it's valid. You know, we don't want to create confusion. And I also appreciate that no one's saying we shouldn't consult with experts in the community. I mean, that's certainly valuable for everybody. And I think this work on Coon Street is an example of that. But I mean, what the statute says is that the commission may hold hearings, may enter into contracts with individuals, organizations, and institutions for services furthering the objectives of the commission's program, may enter into contracts with local or regional associations for cooperative endeavors furthering the commission's program, may accept gifts, contributions, and bequests of funds, foundations from federal, state, or governmental bodies for the purpose of furthering the commission's program, may make and sign any agreements, and may do and perform any and all acts which may be necessary or desirable to carry out the purposes of this section. It shall keep accurate records of meetings, et cetera, et cetera. The commission may, it says, wait, it shall keep accurate records of its meetings. It shall file an annual report, which shall be printed in the town. The commission may appoint such clerks and other employees as it may from time to time require. The commission shall consist of not, and this gets into, you know, how we're appointed and how big we are, but alternate members may be, okay. So, I mean, this says a lot of stuff that I don't think is in conflict with our saying that we want to specially designate. And what is it that we want to do? I don't think it's at all controversial. We want to specially designate individuals so that they feel connected to us. We regularly invite them to our meetings. But I think we also want to show the community and the historical commission at the state level that we have some serious intelligence available to us. It's really about the information. Yes, Dawn.
So I think kind of what is troubling me is that there's a much, when we do appointments, when the HDC does appointments for their subboards, there is a very formalized process for that. And people have to apply. There is a set number of individuals who will be on said subcommittees. And I'm not sure that that's what you really are looking for here. You're just looking to keep a list of people who have certain expertise within the community in an informal way. This is formalizing it into something that really requires a public hearing process of some sort.
Okay.
Just like what the select board goes through in appointing. Because there's no, I mean, it's just particular government function. Yeah. You can't just, I can't just go out and say, this is the list of people that I want to advise the select board.
I see.
No matter how wonderful and qualified and, you know, how many people would agree with me that they're the right people, I can't do things that way. And you guys fall under the same process. So if you want to go into the formalized process, we can talk about that. But if you just want to keep a running list of like, these are great historical resources in the community, and we may give them a call from time to time to ask their advice, then that's a little bit different than formalizing it in this way and really having to go through a process where people submit applications and you have a formalized appointment hearing.
Yeah. So what it does. So just to make sure I understand, what I'm hearing you say is that we can certainly keep a list of helpful resources wherein it's just like there's a legal term for this, where it's just responsive. Anybody who wants to be on this list, if they, you know, have expertise and some credentials, they can be on the list. So it's just by rote. And this would be a group that, you know, we just have a list of people, and there's not, anyone can be on this list, and maybe it's on our website, and we don't have like any preference about it. And then you're saying if you really want to designate it as a set group, you have to think about how many people is it, what are the criteria for it, how do they get on the list, and that's a more involved process of the hearing. Is that right?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I might have to defer to council a little bit on this, on exactly how the process would work, but this is just in my experience, that it would need to be something more formalized to actually list this as a resource subcommittee.
Yeah.
Dawn?
Okay, I'd like to hear from the commissioners about which path we should follow. Georgia, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think at the moment we're in a little bit of a fraught position vis-a-vis members of the town administration. I think in view of that, it would probably be better to take a rather lower key approach to helping get ourselves advisory opinions that we know we're going to need. And I listened to the reasons that you wanted to construct this as an advisory board, to have people regularly invited to meetings and show the community that we have these services available and that they feel connected to our committee. And I think we can achieve those things by the means that Dawn was suggesting. I think we can achieve it by having a list of them, by letting them know personally how much we value their input, and perhaps by inviting them to particular meetings where we think issues are going to arise that might require their expertise, whether they're meetings or meetings with perhaps somebody like Mr. Bronski, where we're going to talk about how you set cobblestones. I just think that would be perhaps a more a quieter way of going about getting that expertise, which is really what we're after, than setting up a resource board at this point in time.
Thank you, Georgia. And anybody else want to comment along those lines? David?
Yeah, I actually do have a comment. You know, while I agree with a lot of the sentiment that Georgia has, I do think that this is an important board and they could be very important to our function. And if a more formalized process, I just don't know logistically how that works, if it's time consuming, which I'm assuming it is. But I think that I'd like to see, quite frankly, our resource board given credit. They're very distinguished experts, and you know, each kind of with their own niche. And I think we need them, and we need their help. You know, not all of us on this board are preservationists or historians, and to have these people's input on a regular basis, I think could kind of take the historical commission to the next level. So I would be in favor of, I think, formalizing it.
That's very interesting, David. Thank you. Angus, did you have anything you wanted to say about this?
I think the most important thing is that we as in the town, and not just our commission, so values the expertise of these professionals, and I agree with Georgia in that you know, that's the essence of what enlisting their aid is. And I agree with David in that they should be acknowledged for their expertise and be recognized. So I guess, you know, whatever the path of least resistance is to enlisting their aid, that's the key. So yeah, that's what I have to say. How about
Thank you, Angus.
our advisors? Do you have any comments about how you would be?
Sorry, Angus. Before we turn to the advisors, I just want to give Mickey a chance to speak because he's our other commissioner here.
Yeah, I mean, I think George and David both had great points, and I like what David said. I think that this is an important group of people that we need to be connected to and show that we're connected to them. So I think that we should maybe just do a little bit more research, get some advice from whoever, council, whoever, to see how we can make this, you know, a little bit more formal, but, you know, appease those that are concerned about the process.
Do any of our, we have two of our special brain trust members here on the call. Betsy and Brian, do you have any preference or comment about this or feeling about this?
I honestly don't have a preference. I'm willing to offer my help whenever it's needed, and however you want to set that up is fine by me.
Thank you, Brian.
I feel almost identically to Betsy, except for one small bit of terrible human behavior that I have to admit to. If you have me on a list, I feel more responsible for showing up for meetings. If I'm not on the list, it feels like, oh, there they are again, unexpected this week. What do they want from me now? So that's just a mechanical thing. I don't care which way or the other. I think the substance is the really important thing.
That's a very good point, Brian.
Frozen again.
We hear you now, Hillary.
Oh, okay. I heard Georgia say that's a very good point, but I didn't hear anything else. And I'm sorry, I'm having all these technical problems.
That's all I said. I agreed with
Oh,
Brian.
okay.
When you have
Okay.
you're on a list, you do have some level of responsibility that you don't otherwise.
Okay. Dawn, it seems like there is some feeling among the commissioners that we should at least understand that there's value in having this as a formalized group, so that we should at least understand the process. So how would we do
Talk
that?
to town administration and council about how we would go about a formalized group as a subcommittee or advisory board, I suppose.
Okay. All right. And in the meantime,
The only thing that concerns me is actually limiting the resources that you go to.
yeah, maybe we, and I don't think, I think we're in a small community, so I would be more interested in setting some qualifications that are clear than setting a limit. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. But what I would like to do is just recognize that we will want to understand the process of formalizing this without yet making any determination about formalizing it. But I would like this to just be able to, so I guess what we're saying is, for now, we do not have formal NHC Resource Advisors.
I'll get some
because it's
on process.
okay. But just to address the immediate concern, would it be helpful, Ken, this was a concern in your letter. How can we address your concern right now?
The concern in my letter was with respect to the advisors weren't part of the direct concern that I was expressing. I was expressing the scope of the mission statement relative to what the statute provides. And so the point that Andrew and I were making is that we felt that the scope of the mission should be set along the lines as outlined in the statute, because the statute doesn't
Sorry,
provide...
Ken, I'm sorry, but I just want to deal with the advisory board now, and we will have plenty of time to talk about the letter. But I just want to say, for clarification, the reason why I brought it up is that your letter in the last paragraph says, until there is a clarification of the role of the NHC overall and its relation to the HCC, as well as the structure and responsibilities of the members and advisory committee of the NHC.
Right.
So that's why I brought it up, because you expressed a concern about the structure and responsibility of the members of the advisory committee.
I apologize. The concerns were the same as what Dawn was expressing, in the sense that this was a structure that didn't seem to be provided for in the statute, or providing any basis for how they were appointed. I think that I have no concern, nor does Andrew, relative to the use of advisors, but the fact of creating an advisory board and then how it was created and what its roles were not clarified. And so that was the concern that was expressed in that part of the memo.
Okay. All right. So I think what we're saying now, and I'd like to have a motion. I think what we're saying now is that we do not have an advisory board, but we do have a desire to add additional expertise and designate people to give us that expertise, and that we will work with town administration and town council to understand how we do that in a way that's consistent with good governance. Is there anybody who would feel they could make that motion or would like to make a different motion?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mickey. Okay, David?
Aye.
Georgia?
Yes.
And I'm also an aye. So Brian, we hope that you will still come to our meetings when we ask you to come, even though you will not have the illustrious benefit of being an official NHC Resource Advisor, complete with a holiday fruitcake. And you will get that perhaps at some point in the future once we, figure that out. Yes, Georgia.
I make a mean fruitcake.
Yes, and Georgia's fruitcakes have ingredients that cost less than $45. So nobody needs to get concerned about that either.
May I just say that the price of my participation is just a little bit of nagging, that's all.
Now, all right, so moving on, the next thing that has been a question is the certified local government program. So I'd like to tackle that as the next topic to discuss. So reading from the letter, in addition, we were asked to review the request to apply to become a certified local government and to review what would be involved in this if we were so recognized, we being the town of Nantucket. In our view, and R refers to Ken Bogrand and Andrew Vorse, there are some benefits and not much additional staff time or expenses involved to qualify to be considered. A memorandum of understanding is required between the NHC and the HCC, defining their relative roles and responsibility. Our recommendation, therefore, is that this needs a detailed review and discussion between the NHC and HCC, review by town council, and perhaps some community research with other towns that have become CLGs as to their experience with this. As the town's resources are particularly stretched at this time, taking on new initiatives that may not provide significant benefits will be difficult. Until there's and then this is about the clarification of the role and the advice board, which we just dealt with, we recommend that we not proceed with the CLG application until these issues are resolved and clarified. So I want to point out that the MOU is actually a memorandum of understanding between the NHC, the HCC, and the Massachusetts Historical Commission. It's a three-way understanding. And it is something that we, the three of us, come to. And it is also just, it is a very lightweight statement of key responsibilities and a statement of coordination. So it says that we meet annually to discuss each other's work. And we at the NHC and the HCC certainly understand that this is something that we cannot make this application. So the application is made by the NHC and the HCC and the town together. And we cannot make the application unless we all want to make it. So we could not we recognize that the HCC and the NHC together have to sign this memorandum of understanding. So I'm just not really sure. I think when we went in front of the select board on August 12th, we wanted to let the select board know about the benefits of being part of this program. And the certification, it's a program funding benefits. And we wanted to hear from the select board, yes, we support, we for our part, if you do what's necessary, we would sign it, we would support it. So it's just a little, I don't understand the value of saying, well, you have to, you know, we won't sign it until you work with the HCC. I mean, we can't, there is no application unless we work with the HCC. So I guess I was just a little bit struggling with, we have to work with the HCC. We can't apply on our own. We're not asking to apply on our own. The first thing we did was to go to the HCC to talk about it. And that continues to be what we're trying to do. Well, what we would like from town administration and from the select board is to say, if the HCC and the NHC together want to apply to be a part of this program, and the staff, Holly, also wants to apply to be a part of this program, we will support that. I think that's really the question. Does any other commissioners want to talk, and then we can hear from Ken about that, or Dawn? I see George's hand is up.
Yeah. Hillary, I may be missing something, but I don't understand, other than on the part of Holly, and of course she's best placed to tell us what that would be. I don't understand what town resources are going to be required that are said to be particularly stretched, and what new initiative the town is going to be required to undertake in order for this to happen. What am I missing here?
I don't know. I think that's a good question. Does anybody else have any questions, just to get all the questions out, and then we can hear from Ken and Dawn? Any other questions about this? Holly, did you want to make, oh, David, yes?
Yeah, who would be the CLG coordinator?
That would be Holly. Holly's raising her hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I share the same opinion Georgia does. I'm at a loss to what further, resources we would be demanding of the town in the process of becoming a CLG.
Angus, do you and Mickey want to talk about the last exchange you had with, and I think Georgia was there as well, with the HCC about this? I mean, they talked about this recently. I think just in September, they talked about this.
Are you referring to the meeting that we had with the HTC?
The meeting that the HCC had, where I think the three of you attended, where they talked about the CLG?
Yeah, I believe Ray was saying that yeah, they were supportive, but they needed to check with town council about if there was any unforeseen issues that they weren't aware of. And the last report we had from Holly, please correct me if I'm wrong, Holly, but I thought that council and Plus had met, and that there weren't any issues, and that things could move forward. So I really thought the next step was for the HDC to go ahead and vote on the MOU and us to move forward with the process. Holly, have I missed something?
No, you didn't. The chair of the HDC just wanted to make sure that their special legislation was taken in account as far as discussion with town council. I assured them that the conversation that the planning director had with town council was a broad approach from all aspects, not just the HDC's special legislation, but also from the town charter, to make sure that, at the end of the day, yes, this is a federal program through the National Park Service, but it was established, after Nantucket had its special legislation and all that stuff. So that was the biggest thing.
But then it was reviewed and there weren't any conflicts or issues?
I was told that it was fine, unless Ken may know otherwise, but I was under the impression that everything was fine from that perspective.
Well, my concern is the fact that neither Andrew or I or Libby has gotten any documentation from the HDC that they're comfortable with respect to their responsibility and the clarity of the roles of the Historic Commission and the HDC relative to each of their obligations under the MOU. Once those are established and both sides are comfortable with that, then we don't see that there would be a problem in terms of moving forward. But because you need to have an MOU before you can move forward. But in answer to the question of the concern relative to staffing, as you are aware, based on what has occurred relative to the COVID situation, there's a significant loss of revenue to the town. And so Libby's concerned about the allocation of all of the resources that the town has available, because there's obviously not going to be any, obviously no additional new hiring. And so the allocation of Holly's time in terms of her different roles is of concern to make sure that the additional responsibilities are not such that other areas suffer in order to be able to do this at this particular point in time. So those are the two concerns that were expressed by Andrew and I to Libby in the memorandum. So number one, that there was not clarity with respect to an agreement on the roles of the Historic Commission and the HDC relative to each other. Secondly, that they are both in agreement with respect to executing the MOU. And thirdly, with respect to a concern over the amount of time that would be necessary to implement the MOU and the CLG application, because of the concern from the town's point of view as to limited amount of staff and the workload of the staff. I hope that explains the town's position as expressed in the memo that Andrew and I sent to Libby.
Okay, thank you, Ken. So as far as the HCC and the NHC, this has always, been acknowledged.
You're breaking up again.
Sorry, we're catching like every other word.
Certainly the NHC and the HCC have to.
Hillary, would you please repeat what you said? We got every third word. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you guys can actually hear me now. Is that,
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Please start.
So, yeah, so what I was going to say was, as far as the HCC and the NHC, this is an application that the two municipal preservation commissions make together. There will be no application until we decide together to make it. So that's very clear. And as far as the concern over time to implement this program, I mean, this program, it's sort of like being part of the Better Business Bureau. Like it provides additional training if we want it. It provides additional money if we want it. We can leave it at any time. We don't have to show up for anything. We do have to make one, report about our activities, and then we have to do a bunch of things that we already do, like take minutes, have open meetings, and talk to each other. So it has been a topic of conversation, and we felt that there's not a lot of extra work, but it sounds like the town administration does have concerns about it being extra work. And I think the person best suited to talk about that, so that it's not, I mean, this shouldn't be something we have a question about. This should be something that we can know. And I think the person best suited is Holly. So Holly, do you have the capacity to be our coordinator, or do you have any concerns?
Well, putting me on the spot. I am in support of this program. I've been in support of this program since I was interning at Nantucket Preservation Trust. I think it's very important for Nantucket. I understand where town admin is coming from a staff's time frame and resource. COVID has stretched, I think, town staff, all staff, to a different degree. The plus department is extremely busy. HDC, we're meeting, multiple times a week, 5 hours meetings on Mondays or Tuesdays. Plus HDC and NHC are not my only roles, as you all are aware. Yes, I think if you look at the MOU boilerplate that we've received from the SHPO office, the State Historic Preservation Office, you see a lot of these roles and responsibilities from both commissions, which are things that you all do right now. One of the biggest things that are, you would have to take the initiative to meet together. You've done that once so far, really. The responsibilities of the CLG coordinator, I've personally already spoken to the CLG coordinator for the Commonwealth, Chris Skelly, making sure there's nothing else that I'm not missing here. Collects materials for the annual report, exactly what does that entail. I think the biggest thing is for the MHC to realize we are not like any other commission, historic district commission in the Commonwealth. We are probably the busiest, probably one of the busiest in the country. And so, when I've sent agendas off to Chris for him to look at, to say, hey, look, this is what we've got. He couldn't believe it. So I think from my point of view would be want to know exactly what he would be looking for as a coordinator. He did think that we checked a lot of boxes off already to be in this position. It would give us a lot more benefit from our coastal resiliency standpoint under the Certified Local Government Program. There's a lot of benefits. The funding, we're lucky right now that the funding, which I know is also on the agenda, but the funding is available to non-CLGs this year. But that's just this year. That's not every year. So we do have that as a benefit. I think I mean, at the end of the day, I understand town admin's position on it from a staffing standpoint, because we don't know what the rest of this year is going to be like. We don't know how long we're going to be meeting like this. We don't know what those ramifications are. And, they're trying to be cautious. And I respect that. If it needs for me to have more of a conversation with Chris Skelly at MHC for him to understand where we're at, in town admin's concerns and my concerns, quite frankly, I'd be more than happy to contact him. He's very quick with getting back to me on questions. And quite frankly, I've expressed it to, both the planning director as well as both chairs of the commissions, and I think town admin. If there's any questions that need to be addressed by the State Historic Preservation Office, please let me know. I can email Chris, and he's really good about coordinating back. So I guess I don't know what the future will bring. Nobody does when it comes to COVID, but I do want to make it clear that yes, there are other responsibilities that I do have for the plus department and PDC and the town.
Oh, Hillary, you're muted.
Yes, Angus, please go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I know, Hillary, you are, Holly, you're so busy with all the work that you do, and especially the work related to HDC and the advisory boards. There's a lot on your plate, and as you say, you're doing the coastal resiliency, and there are many hats that you're wearing and roles that you're doing. As long as the NHC has been a commission, you've advocated for the CLG and have made very good points about why it's important to Nantucket to have that. So as we negotiate the steps towards that, anything that makes it easier and possible for us to do that, that's what we're working towards. as far as the demands of time, though, relative to everything that you're doing, maybe it takes talking with another coordinator and find out how much time or how much of demand that could possibly take. My idea is that it relatively doesn't take a lot of your time if you're comparing it to what all your other roles demand of you. But it's hard to know because I'm not a CLG coordinator. So it would be nice to know. But is that an hour a week or a month, or is it 40 hours a month? We don't know. And of course that would be the exposure that the town would be subject to. So I mean that would be a good thing to get a grasp on, so that isn't a question mark, or if it is, like how much of a issue is it really?
Does anybody, thank you, Angus, do any of the other commissioners want to make any comment about this topic, which is, staff time? We're talking about staff time and whether or not we should move forward with this application, or have any way of knowing right now about qualifying or disqualifying an application based on staff time. Holly, do you have your hand up? Yeah.
I actually had a question, maybe for Ken. It almost seems it would be beneficial because, again, we all know that the MOU is required for the application for the CLG because of our benefit of having two commissions. Is the town admin looking at having a more detailed MOU than what the boilerplate that we received from MHC, which I confirmed multiple times that that's the only one that they've used, with the handful of other towns that have this unique situation? Or are we wanting to have a joint, just two commissions MOU in addition to the MOU that's required? I'm just curious on that.
My view is, but again, I haven't spoken to the select board. My view is that when the select board gets, remember, the select board only got an application from one board, the NHC, to move forward to become a CLG. I think it's important for the select board to receive an application from both of the organizations to move forward with this, and B, to attach to that request the form of MOU that would be required. And if it's only the state form, that would be very helpful to understand the amount of detail and the definition of the responsibilities of the two. Neither of those things were available to the select board at the time that this matter was brought forward. And so I think that that's a way to be able to address the question of moving forward with this.
Thank you. I think because when the NHC was before the select board last month, it was more or less to talk about what their mission is and their priorities. I don't think we were quite ready to do a formal submittal, knowing that the HDC has, had this on their agenda and had to push it back. And yes, they were able to talk about it earlier in the month with a special meeting. And, I completely respect that and can definitely make a formal, submittal, if you will, of what the MOU is. But this before you on the screen is the MOU, which I know a lot of people have seen. This is from Gloucester, and they're in the same boat as we are. These are the responsibilities. And again, I've reached out to Chris Kelly with MHC to make sure, is there any other boilerplate? Is this a different kind, or is this the only one? Nope, this is the only one they use. So this is what it would entail, which is pretty much what they do now. So I was just wanting to clarify if there was.
Yeah, and I just, Dawn, I see that your hand is up. I just want to make one, and I'll direct the conversation to you. I just want to make one comment. Ken, the select board did not receive an application from us to be a CLG or part of that program. the select board received our priorities and our mission statement. And our priority is to update the surveys. That's our big priority for the year. And one thing that would help is to be part of this program because it would give us grant money. We cannot apply individually. So the process is that the HDC and the NHC jointly apply. And then the MHC recommends, or they check whether we meet the requirements, and they recommend or don't recommend it to the Park Service. And the Park Service accepts it, and then it goes back to the town and the select board signs it. And only when the select board signs it can we actually join the program. So we can apply to this program without the select board. Obviously, we don't want to apply to a program without talking to the select board about it, but it's a joint application by the preservation commissions. And the preservation commissions are independent commissions. We are not supervised by the select board. Now, we are partners and we are part of a community, but as far as the law and the legislature, we did not give an application to the select board. So I think that's a really, really important clarification. Dawn?
I was just going to say that I believe that the HDC did talk about this at their special meeting, and they were maybe putting together a list of information that was going to be helpful to them to be able to make a decision on this. And I mean, I guess what we're looking for is for you to have a joint agreement and then go ahead and move forward. I mean, if the staffing time is an issue, everyone's just going to have to be understanding of that. Like, there are so many things that we've had to drop that are really high priorities, or to at least put to the side with just the way we're functioning while COVID's around, and it doesn't appear to be going anywhere right now. But I mean, I think generally, if you guys can come to an agreement, I don't know if there's another meeting set up between the two boards at some point, or how the process is going to work, or if the HDC is just going to get I don't know what the status is on what they asked for and how it's being provided to get them to a point where they can make a decision. Maybe Holly can speak to that. Yeah,
so the meeting, and this was in a special meeting that we held mostly because of the preservation restriction for the youth hostel. And the chair Mr. Pohl wanted to have it on the agenda, which I was very appreciative of, to have that discussion. And his biggest concern was making sure that town council was also looking at it from an HDC standpoint in the legislation. And I assured him that it was looked at from a town whole viewpoint. So that was the biggest thing on that. I will definitely be reaching out to Mr. Pohl to, make sure that, seeing one thing, if we can maybe possibly have a joint meeting between the two commissions, or if we can just handle this individually before moving forward to the select board for.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't even need to come back to us until after it's approved at the state level, if you all come to an agreement to submit something. I mean, maybe we're just informed about it. I don't know that we need to have a big discussion about it. Don't we have funding to update the surveys from the CPC available?
No. We received CPC funding. HDC did a few years ago for the update of Building with Nantucket in Mind. That's on hiatus right now. We did, through the planning director and deputy director, had $100,000 put in the budget, but because of the restrictiveness with the budget for COVID, that was taken out along with a couple other things. So the funding source is definitely not there. From a town perspective. And, I understand from my different roles that, funding is the biggest thing, and not just funding, but also town, time, staff on those particular initiatives. So overall, having the CLG would definitely be beneficial for us to apply for funding. However, the biggest thing right now, I'm looking at the application for the funding that just came out from the federal government. And we can, as an active preservation commission, active historic district commission, and active planning department and regional planning authority, we could submit this year for surveying and planning funding, which would be great. So of course that would be something that we would want to do.
Does the HDC want to move forward with that? Have you had that discussion yet?
I have not, no. I literally just received it, I think last week is when we received it from MHC. I know Hillary received that email. I forwarded it on to the planning director. So Andrew is aware of it.
It's in our packet,
you know, that's
by the way.
Yes. It's definitely
packet.
something that we want to look forward to, because I know at the end of the day, with all the different town initiatives, I'm looking for it. You know, I always hear Libby in my head, how are we paying for it? How are we paying for it? And that's what we want. This is one of the key objectives of being a certified local government. But you know, if we can apply for now, great. I would like to see both. Is it in here, Hillary? Yes, here it is.
I'm sorry, I just have one more question.
Yep,
do we also have someone in mind that could actually do the work of updating the surveys? I mean, I know that it was...
We would have to follow procurement law. So we would have to go through the whole procurement process, just like we do for any other funding that we receive.
But do we have...
It would go through procurement.
Available?
So what typically happens, Dawn, that I've seen, and Holly can chime in, and Brian and Betsy can probably say something about this as well, but we would, so first I think we want to make a survey plan, because there's a tremendous number of surveys that need to be updated, and we need to organize the process about how we would do it. And we can actually apply for grant money to pay people to do the plan for us. And then once we had a plan, we would specify the work and we would put out an RFP. And the Massachusetts Historical Commission helps with this. So these surveys, you know, one of the things that has been said by some folks as well, they're HCC surveys, and now the NHC wants to have their own surveys. These are surveys that would go to the Massachusetts Historical Commission to become part of the statewide information system database that makes a record of historic resources statewide. And it's important on Nantucket because we're a National Historic Landmark. We actually already have a data inventory list which states all of the buildings and whether or not in the determination of the Park Service that did the inventory of our national landmark, if they are contributing or non-contributing. Is all of that additional information all specified by the Historical Commission as a best practice. So to answer your question, do we have anyone in mind? It would need to be somebody who is an architectural historian who has experience and qualifications in doing these surveys. It would need to be a municipal function so that it's really like part of the government. And then the surveys would, people on Nantucket, we might have some people off Nantucket, but then there would be a procurement process working with Holly to select the people that would do the surveys. And this is done all the time, all across the Commonwealth through 340 different historical commissions. It's the fundamental #1 thing that historic commissions do is surveying, surveying the historic resources. And then those surveys become part of the statewide information system, the Cultural Resources Information System.
Thank you.
Sure. So I guess just to wrap up on this topic of the application for the CLG.
Hillary, you're breaking up.
So what I'm in complete agreement with, because probably my son is in the other room playing some game. Can you hear me now okay? Yeah, okay. Is that the NHC and the HCC
Hillary, you're breaking up again.
should work together to make this application, working along with Holly.
Yeah.
If anybody doesn't, hang on one second.
David, thank you for everything. Yeah. No, not at all. No. Let's get this thing on record. Thank your mom for me.
Somebody's got to do one of those spoofs of a Zoom meeting, like they did a spoof of the telephone conference calls.
I'm currently sharing my Wi-Fi with my fifth grader.
I'm
right
back
now.
It's just crazy. We will work with them. We have a joint training coming up. And I think that'll be really helpful. That's at the beginning of November. And we're going to have, yeah, you're saying yes, Polly. Okay. We will also ask to meet with the HDC when they have their 5th Tuesday meeting, which is at the end of December. So, and I just want to see if at any time, you know, Holly decides, you know what, I just can't sign up for this CLG, or the HDC says, we just can't get comfortable, there will be no application. But we certainly hope, and it would be helpful to hear, and I think I am hearing this from Dawn, that if we make the application and we're accepted and it comes back to the select board, they understand that that's coming, hopefully, and that they'll sign it. Angus?
I was about 5 minutes ago, I was going to echo what Dawn was saying, and I appreciate her sensibility and what she was saying is basically move forward, and we only have time for what we have time for. So if the conditions are such that Holly doesn't have the time in her budget, it gets held, but there's nothing keeping us, or shouldn't be anything keeping us from just moving forward in the process towards our end goal, which is to benefit all of us.
Brian?
I just want to say something. It's a little out of order, but
Brian, did you want to say something?
yeah, can you hear me? I've unmuted. Yep. I just want to say, I mean, I've worked with the town and reviews and so forth in various capacities for about 35 years. In that time, it has been and remains probably the least thoroughly documented district of the quality that it has. The background information is very poor. Most of what's detailed has come from Betsy and from private research, but the forms themselves are absolutely inadequate. They're just windshield surveys, really, in many ways. And the thing that surprised me is that this is not more of a priority for a place of such exceptional historical importance. And so I'd give the town a nudge and say, this isn't just filling in forms, it's really actually coming to understand and have publicly available the information that everyone can understand what these are, and to allow the HDC to have good access to information so they know what they're judging, because now sometimes they're shooting in the dark, they're making their best guess. So I think COVID has turned everything upside down, but COVID aside, I would hope the town might nudge this higher up as a priority.
Mary, did you want to say something?
If I may, thank you. As we get to the point where we need to make decisions for coastal resilience measures, I think it will be very important to have good information about what buildings are historic and why and how, and perhaps what buildings are not so historic that we just assume are. I think that having that concrete information will be a great guide to help us make decisions as we try and implement coastal resilience measures or decide what might need to be abandoned. So just add that to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I agree. The surveys are really, really important for many constituents. So the CLG is the path to getting some funding. We can apply anyway about an application, but I think we can. So are you okay with this idea of how we're going to proceed with the CLG portion of this?
I am, because my real concern was to make sure that both the HDC and the NHC were on the same page in terms of moving forward. What I'm hearing is that that's the case. So that was what I was hoping that we could achieve, so that this can be moved forward in a positive manner.
Fabulous. All right, so we will continue to work with the HDC, work with Holly, and when we have an application that we feel we can submit to Chris Skelly, we will do that together. And when it comes back, we will bring it to the select board. And we'll let you know when, of course, when we've applied. All right? Okay. So moving on now to the next topic that was in the letter, and actually the topic that we called this meeting to discuss is the mission statement. I think there's really two issues here. One is, you know, what do you have on your website as your mission statement? And the other issue is, what does the NHC do? What is their authority? And what is not their authority, and what is not appropriate for the NHC to do? And I think it's really the second question that is the most important question. To deal with the first question about our mission statement, we did have a brief discussion about this last week. The energy of the group at that time was to just go back to something really kind of administrative and very simple, minimalist. Holly, could you do me the favor of pulling up the 3 mission statements? There's a page in the packet which is with comments from Chris Skelly, the Director of Local Programs from the MHC. So we asked for Chris's feedback. So Holly, if you could show the original mission statement that was on our website, it says old. I'd like to read it, and I can't quite see it. Okay, thank you. The Nantucket Historical Commission is the local historic preservation planning, is the local historic preservation, archaeology, planning, and advocacy agency. The NHC creates educational opportunities, creates plans for the preservation of Nantucket, advocates through the Board of Selectmen on issues of historic preservation, and oversees state requirements for archaeology. And Chris had some comments about this. Holly, if you just scroll down. If you just scroll down. I'm not going to talk about the plus proposed right now, but Chris Kelly says, I think both versions need editing. Nowhere does either mission. I'd like to see language about community-wide historic preservation planning. This is the building block of historic preservation, the foundation of the role of a local historical commission. This is an essential part of how you distinguish your role from the regulatory design review of the Historic District Commission. And then he also called out the following statement: advocates through the Board of Selectmen. This language is problematic, as the Nantucket Historical Commission, as an autonomous appointed board, is not bound to advocate just through local elected officials. You are free to advocate in an advisory capacity on historic preservation matters too, not through local elected officials. to other boards and commissions, to municipal staff, and to the general public. So then if you scroll up to the new one that we put up, which has been taken down, I think what you'll see, and by the way, I just want to say, I got this feedback from Chris Skelly after we presented to the select board. And I answered a question from Jason Bridges at that select board meeting. I went and listened to that meeting again last night because I just wanted to refresh my memory about what happened, who said what, about he had concern that we might be starting to advocate directly to the public or advocate directly to a state agency, and he was concerned about that. And I said in that meeting, well, I think what I learned later is that that's actually not true. So we have to grapple with that, talk about that, I guess, but it's not true. We don't advocate just through the select board, according to the Massachusetts Historical Commission. So Holly's now showing what we had proposed. And I just want to point out that this middle paragraph is basically the old mission statement. And then we added these bits about, at the bottom, about complementing the local historical district commission. And so I don't think there's anything controversial or surprising or unexpected about this second and third paragraph. I think, and you know, Ken, you called out in your memo a lot of concerns. And the director of planning, Andrew Vorst, also sent me an email with his concerns, which I can read into the record. But I think that if I can venture to guess, those concerns came from this beginning part, where we say the Nantucket Historical Commission serves the public by protecting the National Historic Landmark of Nantucket. Nantucket's period of historical significance ranges from the settlement period beginning in 1659 up to and including the preservation-oriented revivalist development of the Beinecke period ending in 1975. Historic assets include not only the structures erected during this period, but also the setting and context of these structures, the American and Native American artifacts, and the island's special visual quality as expressed in the natural and built environment. And we can discuss this, but Chris Skelly said, I would recommend some revisions. And again, this happened, you know, after August 12th when we presented this. I got this feedback. I don't see any reason to have the period of significance included in your mission statement. I see this as problematic for archaeological resources, as well as recent past properties that may have significance now or at some point in the future. And again, he reiterates this about not advocating through. So I'm gonna suggest that to say the Nantucket Historical Commission serves the public by protecting the National Historic Landmark of Nantucket, this should not be a controversial statement. I mean, this is actually in the bylaw that we protect the historic assets of Nantucket, historic resources, and Nantucket is a National Historic Landmark, and people should be aware of that sentence as you know, validated by the law and something that is true and should not be controversial. I would suggest that we remove all of this stuff about the periods of historical significance. These periods are stated in our National Landmark Update. We don't need to restate them. They're in the Landmark Update. The Landmark Update should be on our website. And I would also say that we do need to remove this statement about advocating through the select board, because and maybe, you know, so maybe we could get some feedback about those suggestions, but then we still have the second issue, which is what is the authority? And we have a letter here which quotes directly from a letter from Stephen Cohen. saying the law does not provide for any regulatory, adjudicatory, or direct advocacy role or provide any historic preservation power of authority. So it doesn't reference in the letter that this is a direct quote from Stephen Cohen, but I have the letter from Stephen Cohen that was sent August 14th, and it is a direct quote. So at some point we need to talk about this and get comfortable as a community and get on the same page. But as far as the mission statement, I would like to propose that we include, from the NHC proposed, we include this first sentence that's in bold. We take out everything else that's in this paragraph. We include this second paragraph, but we remove advocate through the select board and just say we advocate. We advocate on issues of, to the public and other boards on issues of historic preservation, and that we leave the third paragraph as is. So with that on the table, could I have some reactions? Georgia.
I am very comfortable with that.
Okay, Ken, thank you.
Hillary?
Georgia, go ahead.
Hillary, I understand removing that second sentence in the first paragraph. Is there any reason that we need to remove the third sentence? I like historic assets include. You can take out not only the structures, you can say the setting and context of these structures. I'm thinking about the Milestone Road project and all that signage. And I'm thinking that we need to talk about the setting and context of our historic structures, the Native American artifacts, and the special visual quality. I think that's very important that we mention.
Okay, so Georgia is saying that we would say the Nantucket Historical Commission serves the public by protecting the National Historic Landmark of Nantucket. And then what would you say is the second sentence in that paragraph, Georgia?
Historic assets include not only structures, I would just say structures, leave out that sentence with the dates, not only structures, but also, and then go on with the rest of it. The rest of that sentence.
Okay, does anybody else have agree with Georgia about that, or have another?
This is David.
David, go ahead.
I think my only concern with what Georgia's proposal is, which I quite like to keep that last sentence, or at least portions of it, there's no mention of historic assets prior. National Historic Landmark, that first sentence in bold doesn't exactly feed grammatically with starting the next sentence, historic assets include. Does that make sense? We just might need to rearrange the beginning of that sentence so that it flows better.
I agree.
Okay, so David, you're agreeing, but you want to wordsmith it a little bit. Does anybody, and which we can do, I can pull it up, but does anybody else have a comment about about this in George's comment?
This is Angus. I agree with both.
You agree, Angus, you agree with Georgia about putting in about the resources? Okay, thank you. Brian, did you, oh, sorry, Angus?
And agreeing with Dave as far as a graceful way to lead into that.
Got it. Okay. Brian?
Yep, I just want to make a brief comment. First of all, I think George is right on the money. And the problem with the dates, just to clarify for people, in historical commissions have a planning responsibility, which means you're reevaluating. Things change, need to be updated. The National Historic Landmark nomination is a fixed thing. It sits there, it's got to be fixed. The dates have to be fixed. 100 years from now, it'll still have those same dates unless it's updated. And similarly, the Historic District Commission has to fix its dates, so it has to let people know what it's looking to protect. But the planning role of an historical commission is periodically to go through and say, it's 30 years since this was done, and several things look different. Different resources have become valuable. We need to study them. So I think getting the dates out is absolutely the right thing to do for this statement. And I also think making sure that you expand the statement to the broad quality of the island itself, so you can address things like the Milestone Road and the landscape effect of all that.
Thank you, Brian.
Does anybody else have any comment? I agree, Brian, I appreciate that, I agree. Dawn, did you have any comment about the direction we're going with this?
If Ken's comfortable, then I'm comfortable with the wording. I mean, I think the mission statement it's great to have one, but I don't think it really detracts either way from the work you're doing.
Okay. And we didn't hear from Nikki.
Yeah, I'm good with with George's suggestions and David's. You know, it probably needs a little bit of reworking, but I think it's good to include it. So I'm in favor of that.
Okay, I'm just looking at this. So we're saying the Nantucket Historical Commission serves the public by protecting the National Historic Landmark of Nantucket. And then we would say Nantucket's important historic resources as well as the setting and context there, as well as their setting and context. Their setting and context.
Hillary, Hillary, we missed your now.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just reading. I'm thinking out loud here, but I'm trying to get there. Okay, the Nantucket Historical Commission serves the public by protecting the National Historic Landmark of Nantucket. Nantucket's important historic resources include structures as well as their setting and context, the American and Native American artifacts, and the island's special visual quality is expressed in the natural and built environment. I think I had suggested taking that out, but I think what the commission is saying is that it should remain. Something like that.
Subject to the final words, I'm okay with that because streetscapes are clearly one of the issues that are important in terms of the historical setting and the preservation of those streetscapes is a part of the role of the Nantucket Historical Commission.
Okay. So right now it says the Nantucket Historical Commission serves the public by protecting the National Historic Landmark of Nantucket. Nantucket's important historic resources include structures as well as their setting and context, the American and Native American artifacts, built environment. The NHC advises the Select Board on matters of preservation and works with Nantucket's preservation planner, planning director, and other municipal agencies. It creates plans and guidelines for historic preservation, directs surveys of buildings and lands of archaeological and historic significance, and advocates to the select. So we would say and advocates to the Select Board, other boards,
Hillary,
to the Select Board. Am I breaking up? Oh, sorry, Georgia, go ahead.
Hillary, why don't we just say advocates for advocates for historic preservation?
Advocates for historic preservation.
That was going to be my suggestion as well.
Okay, got it. The NHC complements.
Do you
the
want to
local,
share screen?
Sure. Yeah, I can share screen.
I think that'd be easier
Sure.
because you keep on breaking up here and there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to fix the breaking up, but Okay, can you see? Hopefully.
Not yet.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay, okay, good. Okay, so this is what we have. The Nantucket Historical Commission serves the public by protecting the National Historic Landmark of Nantucket. Nantucket's important historic resources include structures as well as their setting and context, the American and Native American artifacts, and the island's special visual quality is expressed in the natural and built environment. The NHC advises the Select Board on matters of preservation and works with Nantucket's preservation planner, planning director, and other municipal agencies. It creates plans and guidelines for historic preservation, directs surveys of buildings and lands of archaeological and historical significance, and advocates for historic preservation. The NHC complements the local historic district commission, which is Nantucket's regulatory architectural review board. It also liaises with the Massachusetts Historical Commission and local preservation and conservation nonprofits. I think this gets at Chris's point about wanting to make sure that we talk about preservation planning. I think he wanted us to say as responsible for community-wide preservation planning. Mention identification, okay, so we do mention identification and documentation of historic resources. He says, I would like to see language about community-wide historic preservation planning. This is a building block of preservation, the foundation, essential. So do we express that in this proposed revised mission statement? The NHC advised, go ahead.
You say it in the first sentence of the second paragraph. I feel like you've just sort of wordsmithed this on the spot. Nice work. It looks good.
Okay. Advises, do we want to say community-wide preservation planning?
I suggest you leave the words as they are in terms of it gives you the scope of what you want to do and doesn't raise an issue of who's taking control of providing the plans for the community.
Okay, well, it does say it creates plans and guidelines for historic preservation, direct surveys. Okay, so could I have, if we're there, could I have a motion to adopt these revisions as shown on my screen right now?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Angus seconded. David?
Aye.
Mickey?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. I'm sorry, I didn't ask Ken and Dawn. You would weighed in earlier. Was there anything else you wanted to say about this?
I'd like to have the record reflect that I support the revised proposal as just was voted on by the board.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank
you.
Ken, we'll include that in the minute.
Sent the revised on to for when you come before the select.
Okay, terrific. Now, the last and I think really most weighty thing is this question of the letters saying the law does not provide for any regulatory, just saying that we don't have any direct advocacy role. I didn't really appreciate this as much as I do now when I spoke to the select board on August 12th. And I think we as a commission have been learning. We have been participating, several members of our commission have participated in training offered by the MHC. We've done a lot of reading and we are learning really what the role is. We're going to have more training at the beginning of November, but we certainly as a community, I think have to at least acknowledge what the Massachusetts Historical Commission outlines activities for historical commissions. So Holly, could you bring up that document that outlines all of the activities? After the presentation on the 12th, I began hearing from a few people about mission creep and intruding on the HCC. I also heard the word power grab. And this commission really, we want to do what the state has laid out to be our task. We're educating ourselves about what the state has laid out to be our task. So this is what it is. And this comes from the state. So we fill out these surveys. Number one, surveys, these inventory forms. Number two, nominating structures to be on the National Register, which, by the way, we cannot do without the permission of the homeowner and the permission of the select board. That being said, we're a National Historic Landmark, and I did confirm with the Massachusetts Historical Commission that because we're in a landmark, all of the structures are eligible or considered, unless they're found ineligible, they are actually all considered on the National Register. So we would just really be adding more information about that. Survey and planning grants. We talked about that a lot in this meeting. Preservation project fund. So this is if they wanted a particular building preserved and we could help get some money for that. Section 106 reviews, public relations, advising your municipal leaders. Historical commissions advise elected officials and other boards on historic preservation issues. Issues could include zoning changes, the reuse of municipally owned historic buildings, master planning or preservation of historic landscapes, demolition delay bylaws. We could, so a historical commission may seek, preservation plans. A historical commission may find that a preservation plan is needed to better coordinate the many activities that will help preserve a community. This is was related to what Mary Longacre raised just a few minutes ago. And this is also something that we believe we need. We need a community preservation plan on Nantucket. Very important. Local bylaws and ordinances. A historical commission may seek to create or change local bylaws to better protect historic resources. Examples might be local historic districts, demolition delay bylaws, scenic road bylaws, or a village center zoning. For more information, contact the Massachusetts Historical Commission for a copy of preservation through bylaws and ordinances. And then it goes in about the different, similar names with different responsibilities. So Ken, in this letter, well, you know, you say doesn't provide for any regulatory, adjudicatory, or direct advocacy role. I mean, we are not a regulatory commission. We are an advisory commission, but we are not under the authority of the select board. We are an independent advisory commission, and it might be the case that we seek to do things that the select board doesn't agree with, but that doesn't mean that it's not. And we hope that by having conversations ahead, by having a preservation plan, by working with our liaison, Dawn, by working with town administration, we don't come into conflict. And I think we're up to the task of doing our work with civil discourse and respect. But I do want to just have a discussion and get town administration feedback about what this says, all of these things that I've just mentioned.
Okay, I will respond. Clearly the role of the Historic Commission is covered, and anything that's covered in this outline that you put out by the state is within the authority of the Historic Commission, and town administration would not have problems with respect to the commission acting on these matters. What the concern was that was expressed was the fact that the mission statement could or was interpreted as providing an expansive role, a role that went beyond the sense of what the historical commissions are designed to do and outlined in the summary sheet, which you have on the screen. So from my point of view, to the extent that the local historical commission, this one, is acting within the areas defined in here, we have, from town administration, have no problem with respect to the commission acting on any of these matters. And as long as they're acting within the scope of what's provided for here, that's the role of the commission, and that's one that from town administration we support.
Amen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ken. Dawn, did you want to share your feelings about this?
I don't have anything to add.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments? Okay, hearing none. Dawn, so one thing that we would like to know from you is, does the select board want to hear from us on October 7th? That would be next Wednesday's meeting.
I don't really think it's necessary until maybe you and the HTC get together so we can have, I don't know.
Okay.
Actually, if you want us to endorse your mission statement, we could do it, but I would say let's at least put it off till the 14th because we've already set the agenda now for next week.
Yes.
Okay. Holly?
Yes. So if it's okay with everybody here, yes, their agenda has already been set for next week. And then with discussions with Erica, I think the 14th would probably be a better outcome for that. But if we can at least get the mission statement before the select board for their approval, I think that would be one check box off the list, if you will. And then once there is a mutual agreement between the HDC and the NHC on the CLG, then just to go before the select board, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay, so the proposal is that the meeting on the 14th, we would just brief the board that we had met as a group, that Ken and Dawn had joined, that we made revisions to our mission statement. Did we want to say that we reaffirmed our activities as identified by the state? My inclination would be yes, we should reaffirm our activities, and we can present it as this document that you see on your screen now.
I think that would make a lot of sense, Hillary.
Okay,
I
Dawn is
agree.
nodding as well. Okay, thank you. And that we would just say regarding the CLG that it's in the hands of the NHC and the HCC. I think it would be really nice if the HCC wanted to say something too about that. That'd be up to them.
Holly, would you ask Ray if he's available on the 14th and if he can attend the meeting?
Absolutely, I'll talk to him. Yep.
Okay. Great. Dawn, would you like us to be present for the Coon Street discussion?
You're certainly welcome to be. Yeah, I think that would be beneficial. Probably a representative of your board, like if you were present, and if Betsy was present, that would be great.
Yeah.
Rather than
Okay, we'll plan on that.
Of course, anyone is always welcome to speak under public comment, but
okay.
Hillary, you're brief.
Sorry. We will plan on that. The only other business that I just wanted to raise that's on the agenda is the historic goals for streets and the preservation engineering study. So at our lab, we presented our historic goals for streets, and we also shared, but we didn't have a lot of advance notice to talk about the preservation engineering study, which is presented to the town it was contracted for by the Community Foundation. So I'd love to get a little bit of guidance about how to interface with the select board on this work about the streets. We have interfaced with the DPW, obviously, and a next step there, just so you know, is that we're gonna meet to walk around downtown and talk about how our goals and the findings of the preservation study and the NPT and Preservation Institute Nantucket study, which actually joining a kickoff call for at 1 o'clock today, and work downtown. But I think my question is I know this has been something that the select board has been very interested in knowing about. This report, which is really detailed and quite remarkable and important, I think, is now available. How can we loop back with the select board?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry, I know that was kind of a word salad. So we now have this preservation engineering report contracted by the Community Foundation. It's information that is available to the town. We also have our historic goals for streets. So you recall going back like a year and more than a year ago when this was a topic in front of the select board, and the DPW said, well, okay, we've identified, we have transportation goals, we have accessibility goals, we have historic goals, and we need to consider all these three goals when we make plans for improving our streets to make them more usable for people.
Can't hear you, Hillary.
Sorry, you are breaking up a little
Anybody
bit.
else here? I can't.
Can you, I mean, I think the report just needs to be gifted to the town by the Community Foundation, and we need to accept it.
Okay, and as far as the information, and I guess my question is, I think we as a commission would really like to present our historic goals and gift, the Community Foundation would like to gift this report and have some of the findings acknowledged in the community and by the select board. And so my question is, could we do that at some point, or do you want to talk offline about it or look at it, or?
Let me send it over, and I'll talk to Libby about what the best process is, because it's really not coming from you, and there's some procurement issues if it were coming from you. So yeah, I would start by having the Community Foundation formally offer it as a gift to the town. Okay. Yeah, but the historic goals are coming from us. And just given the discussion in the past about streetscapes and all the, how we make our town more accessible and how we work on this material and what the goals are, we do have goals that we would love to present to the select board. Okay. Okay. I think we are at time. There's some things we didn't get to, but I'm thinking that we might be done. Does anybody else have anything to say?
I think we've accomplished a fair amount today. I know it's never everything that we want to do, but can I make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second the motion.
I really want to thank Ken and Dawn for being here and engaging in these conversations with us and helping us. So thank you both. And I want to thank our staff, Holly and Brian and Betsy, also for being here to support us and taking such an interest, whether you get a fruitcake or not, And thank you, Mary, for being a guest today and your contribution. So I heard a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor, Georgia,
Aye.
Mickey,
Aye.
and I am also an aye. And thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you on October 16th is our next meeting. Okay. Thank
Hillary,
you very much.
Thank you.
Hillary, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hillary, thank you for that great chart at the end. I appreciate it.
Oh, sure.